she does not have to be here, which is deeply disrespectful to the event and in particular to our great Catholic community. Very disrespectful. The last Democrat not to attend this important event was Walter Mondale, and it did not go very well for him. He lost 49 states and he won one, Minnesota. So I said, there's no way I'm missing it. Actually, it was not easy for me to get here tonight. Because I wasn't going to miss this thing, no matter, I didn't care. I wasn't going to miss it. But that's true, Walter Mondale, 49-1. He was expected to do well, and it didn't work out. It shows you there is a God. I mean, for those people that are questioning it. I understand the real reason that she's not here is she's hunting with her running mate, spending a lot of time hunting.
That's the one and only President Trump, absolutely killing it at the Al Smith dinner in New York City last night to raise funds for Catholic charities, a traditional event for presidential candidates that, yes, Kamala skipped, the first since Walter Mondale. And we may indeed already be seeing a Mondale-like curse coming upon her. The in-person early voting has begun, and it is an absolute bloodbath for Kamala. We've got the latest numbers coming in. The November election is officially underway, and we're going to see what has the Democrats in an out-and-out panic. Greetings, everyone. It is Livestream Friday. I am your host, Dr. Steve, your Patriot Professor, here to help you stay sane in these crazy, ridiculously insane times. So whatever you do, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button and share this video far and wide. We're live on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, you name it. Make sure to share these videos with friends and family. We need to get these videos into the hands of as many people as possible over the next 2.5 weeks to see the biggest blowout election imaginable. And just a quick reminder now, if you want to ask me your questions, I'll be happy to answer them here on this live stream. But because YouTube has suspended our super chats, we've been completely demonetized by YouTube. Just click on that link below or go to fight.turleytalks.com/join. And what you can do is you can join any one of the levels of support there, and you have instant access to our very own virtual platform. And there you can ask me all the questions that you like. I'll be happy to answer them on this live stream. So just click on that link below or go to fight.turleytalks.com/join. Join any level of support that you like, and you can ask me all the questions you want. It'll be my honor to answer them here on this live stream. In-person early voting is now officially underway in several key swing states. The numbers are coming in, and all you have to do is take a look at this rather panicked headline from Newsweek. Donald Trump leads Kamala Harris among early voters in swing states. Now, I assure you that is not the headline the editors at Newsweek wanted to write. They were so excited. They were giddy, believing their own absurd polls. They were so giddy to write headlines like, "Joy, joy, joy. Kamala's sweeping the swing states. Trump is headed for historic defeat. It's 2008 all over again. Joy." Make no mistake, those were the headlines they had already pre-written and were waiting in the wings. Their Madam President moment, right? Remember, that was Newsweek, right? The Hillary Clinton cover, the November 9th, 2016 cover, Madam President, with a pre-written story on how Trump, that racist, xenophobic Trump, led the Republican Party to an epic defeat. You remember that? Just lying legacy media scumbags. The best they could come up with today was this headline: Donald Trump is leading Kamala in the swing state. I want to correct that headline. I want to correct that headline. Again, coming from one of the most faithful mouthpieces of the Democrat establishment, Newsweek. They never fail to disappoint their Democrat overlords. That headline was clearly written under duress. That headline was written with clenched teeth and fists at the keyboard. Let me fix that headline for you. Here's how it should read. And I've got the data to show you. It's a bloodbath. How's that? 3 words. It's a bloodbath. The in-person voting is a Democrat debacle. They don't want to admit it. They obviously don't want to admit it. They want the joy to remain down in their hearts. But alas, as we've seen this week with cringe Kamala, enraged Kamala, right? This is a democracy. This is a democracy, Kamala. The numbers are in, and the joy is officially gone. Let's begin with the great state of North Carolina, shall we? In-person early voting just started yesterday on the 17th. The numbers are coming in, and boy, did this start with a bang. It is hard to exaggerate how brutal these numbers are for Kamala when you compare them with what took place on this exact same time in 2020. Take a look at some of the counties here. Gaston County, Democrats down 10.5% from 2020. Republicans up 7%. Brunswick, Democrats down 10.2%. GOP up 9%. New Hanover, Dems down 4.4%. GOP up 3.5%. Wake County, Dems down 11.2%. GOP up 5.3%. Look at this one. Guilford, Dems down 18, nearly 20%. GOP up 10.5%. And even freaking deep blue Durham, Democrats down 7%. GOP up 2.5%. Take a look at Gaston County alone. They were the first ones to report their in-person early voting totals. In 2020, this time 2020, day one, Gaston County had a total of 6,672 votes. 37.2% were Democrat. 39.6% were Republican. Again, 37.2% were Democrat. 39.6% were Republican. The rest were unaffiliated. Take a look at yesterday. Yesterday, October 17th, first day of in-person voting, 7,132 voters showed up. That's 500 more than 2020. 27.4% were Democrats. 46.6% were Republican. That, my friends, is what you call a bloodbath. It's a 17-point swing to Trump since 2020. Now, big picture in terms of the state as a whole, day one of early voting in North Carolina went from a Democrat plus 28 in 2020 to now a Democrat plus 1.6. I'll say that again. It went from a Democrat plus 28, a near plus 30 in 2020 on their first day of voting statewide, to now a Democrat plus 1.6. And again, you need to keep in mind that North Carolina Democrats inordinately vote Republican. They're old school Southern Democrats who simply never changed their party affiliation. They would self-identify as Republicans, all right? But they're still registered Democrats. Registration is a lagging indicator from political identification. So that's important to keep in mind as well when you see some of these numbers come in. In other words, it's really that bad. It's even worse than the Democrats thought. Remember, Trump won North Carolina even with that Democrat plus 28 on their first day of in-person early voting. It's now Democrat plus 1.6. Oh, and by the way, day one in North Carolina tends to be the most blue day. Democrats generally they show up on day one. So it only goes downhill from here. I mean, there's literally no good news if it's a democracy. This is a democracy. Data analyst Seth Keshel is predicting that if current trends continue, weighted according to 2020 turnout, which it will not be, it will be significantly more Trumpy than 2020. But even if you were to weight it at 2020 turnout, if these current trends hold, Trump should win North Carolina by over 6 points. Now, by comparison, Trump won North Carolina by 3 points in 2016, the last time he took the Electoral College victory. First Republican in 30 years to win over 30 electoral votes. He won North Carolina by 3 in 2016, and he won by only 1 in 2020. And with those 2020 figures, with that 2020 electorate, right now with these current trends, he'll win by 6. If it is a far more Trumpy electorate, as it looks like it's going to be, sky's the limit. Sky's the limit in terms of the margin he can rack up in North Carolina. I mean, make no mistake, and this is a bona fide bloodbath. There is no good news here if you're a Democrat. None. Again, they'll do everything they can to spin it because they lie. That's all they do. They lie. You have Democrats like Mark Cuban actually thinking that Kamala won voters over to her side with that Brett Baier interview. All they do is lie. I mean, they're psychopaths, right? We talk about Andrzej Lubachevsky, the Polish psychologist who studied Marxists for 40 years. That was his conclusion. They're psychopaths. They're not just wrong. They're not just ideologically mistaken or morally askew. They're mentally ill. These are psychopaths. Let's go to the key swing state of Arizona, shall we? Now, at this time in 2020, take a look at this. Democrats, and again, keep in mind, this is a time when Joe Biden, quote, won Arizona by 10,000 votes. In 2020, Democrats were up 4 percentage points over Republicans, 41 to 43 at this time in their in-person early voting. Democrats were up 41 to 37. As of today, Republicans are trouncing them by double digits. Republicans are up 13, 46 to 33. That's a 17-point swing to the Republicans since 2020. Here's the early voting totals thus far. Republicans account for 78,000 votes. Democrats account for 58,000. Now, I like this tweet by Tyler, I guess it's Bauer from Turning Point USA. Forgive me if I mispronounce, but he tweeted out the most unreported story in America. Democrats are getting decimated in early voting in Arizona. Now, again, we saw this coming, and I want to talk about this for a quick sec. We saw this coming in terms of the voter registration blowout among Republicans. God bless Scott Pressler, who's doing something very much the same in Pennsylvania. But what we saw is a Republican advantage in voter registration absolutely explode. I think they 3x'd it from the point of at the same point in 2020. So now it looks like in the end, by the time we get to November 5th, Republicans might have as high as an 8-point registration advantage over Democrats. The reason why that's so important is that when you compare voter registration with actual voting totals in any given election, they are going to be off by a certain margin. They're going to be off either to the left or to the right. And so in a state like Arizona, what you want to make sure you do is you want to make sure that your voter registration is high enough that it can absorb any margin skew to the left. So if Arizona generally votes, say, 3 points to the left of its voter registration, and Republicans have a 2-point voter registration advantage, the Democrat wins. But if Republicans have an 8-point voter registration advantage, the Republicans win handily by 5 points, way outside the margin of error, way outside the margin of fraud. So that's why it was so important to get those registration margins up. And by the same token, it's also, again, it's a very accurate election predictor. It's a very accurate election prediction indicator. Because if you just went and registered Republican, how are you going to vote in the election? Right? If you were a Republican, but all of a sudden then you switched your registration Democrat, how are you going to vote in this election? So it's a very good indicator, predictive indicator for how people end up voting. So kudos to the amazing effort like that we saw with Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA and all of this get out the vote registration efforts that we've been seeing in Arizona. They are paying off in spades right now. Let's go on over to the great state of Georgia, the Peach State. After 3 days of in-person early voting, we can now compare 2020 totals with 2024 totals. And here we are. In 2020, the black vote, which is overwhelmingly Democrat in Georgia, of course, was 37%. Nearly 40% of the total in-person voting at this time in 2020. Very, very significant. At the same time, the white vote was just around 52%. It was a 15-point differential. Today, in 2024, the black vote has fallen dramatically to 28%, while the white vote, which again is very Republican, is up significantly to 60%. It's a 32-point difference. They doubled the margin. And again, what we're seeing here is a falling average. Day one was 57% white, 30% black, which itself was pretty horrible numbers in comparison to 2020. But day two, whites went up, blacks went down. Whites went up to 60%, blacks went down to 28%. And now day three, again, whites went up 64% to the black 25%. And to make it even worse, a record number of those black voters, particularly black men under the age of 50, are voting Trump. Some polls show it's as high as 1 in 3. We've never seen that before. Again, even Harry Enton of CNN, who's flipping out over this, is saying Trump is seeing the highest level of black support any Republican candidate has seen in half a century. This is an unmitigated disaster for Kamala. Not only is, and we've been seeing this in North Carolina, not only is the black vote significantly lower than it was in 2020, but it is also significantly redder. It is significantly more Trumpy than it was in 2020. Kamala is way, way, way behind 2020 numbers when Biden barely squeaked by with just 10,000 votes in Georgia. It's no coincidence that the latest Quinnipiac poll, which is notoriously left-wing, Quinnipiac is pathetically left-wing. It's in Connecticut, for heaven's sakes, but that's my old stomping grounds. It's bluest of the blue states. But regardless, it's no coincidence that Quinnipiac is now polling Georgia with a Trump +7. Trump plus freaking 7, 52 to 45. I mean, he's running away with it. He's absolutely running away with it in Georgia at this point. And speaking of the polls, wait until you see this. The polls are now showing that this in-person early vote bloodbath is an ominous harbinger of what is yet to come in the next 2.5 weeks. But first, gang, if you are just joining us, remember, if you want to ask me your questions, because YouTube has unfortunately suspended our super chats, just click on that link below or go to fight.turleytalks.com/join. All you have to do is join any one of the levels of support that you see there, and you'll have instant access to our own virtual platform where you can ask me all your questions. I'll be happy to answer them on this live stream. Also, gang, I do need to warn you that your freedom is up for the taking. Even worse, those doing the taking are the same ones who've sworn to defend your freedom. They think they can violate your right to protect your own family. They think they can force their delusions onto your children and your grandchildren. They think they can control the media and hide the truth from you. But here's the key. They cannot take away from you what they've never given you. Self-reliance means peace of mind. That back stock of filtered water, it's yours. A fully charged solar generator, ready. The emergency food on your shelf, safe, especially if that food is from My Patriot Supply. Having served millions of American families, My Patriot Supply is well equipped to help yours. Go to preparewithturley.com right now and stock up on their best-selling 3-month emergency food kit. That's the one I've got. It delivers over 2,000 calories every day. It's sealed inside ultra-durable 4-layer packaging. It lasts up to 25 years. Oh, and did I mention it's delicious? It's awesome. So go to preparewithturley.com and get your kit before it's too late. It ships fast and it ships free. Preparewithturley.com. Hey, don't you have that video insert?
I used to think the Democrats were crazy for saying that men have periods, but then I met Tim Walz. Well, I'd better wrap up because Mayor Adams told me earlier that I needed to make this one very quick, especially the city has reserved this room for a large group of illegal aliens coming in from Texas. There's a group called White Dudes for Harris. Have you seen this? White Dudes for Harris. Anybody know? Are some of you here? White Dudes for Harris? Doesn't sound like it. But I'm not worried about them at all because their wives and their wives' lovers are all voting for me. A major issue in this race is child care, and Kamala has put forward a concept of a plan. A lot of people don't like it. The only piece of advice I would have for her in the event that she wins would be not to let her husband, Doug, anywhere near the nannies. Just keep him away. That's a nasty one. Chuck Schumer is here looking very glum. Doesn't he look glum? He looks glum. But look on the bright side, Chuck, considering how woke your party has become. If Kamala loses, you still have a chance to become the first woman president.
Oh, little glum Chuck, a little scumbag. Oh, that's Trump rocking it at the Al Smith dinner last night. Absolute gold. All right, take a look at this. This will give you a good aerial view of where Kamala is right now. Now, this is national polling from Emerson. Emerson was one of the better polling outlets in 2020, at least when it counted in the last few weeks of the election. They came within a half point of predicting the popular vote. Take a look at this. In mid-August, they were polling Harris with a 4.6 lead. By the way, that's a lie. She never had a 4.6 lead. That's a response bias. But alas, it'll give you a sense of why the joy is gone. Then in September 4th, she had a 3.7 lead. Ooh, it dropped by a point. Then in October 1st, she had a 1.6 lead. Ooh, that dropped by 2 points. And now, October 16th, 0.3, a statistical tie, which for a Democrat is a disaster. It's an electoral college disaster. As a national poll, that's, you have to remember, that's including population centers like New York and LA and Chicago. Remember, Biden won the popular vote by 4.5, and he still came within 40,000 votes of losing the electoral college. Kamala would have to be up nationally around that margin by at least 4 points if she wanted to squeak by with a win, and she's literally nowhere near that. Our good friend Rich Barris just posted this. This is the TIPP daily tracking poll. Kamala has already matched where Hillary was 3 days before she went down to defeat. 3 days before the 2016 election. In other words, Kamala is going the wrong direction and is now where Hillary was, not 3 days before. She's now where Hillary was, not 3 weeks before the election, but 3 days before the election. Right? Hillary was this bad just 72 hours before the election. Kamala is as bad as that 3 weeks out. So Rich often talks about how Hillary basically collapsed in the last few days before the election. It's when you saw the polls begin to dramatically contract and evidence a Trump surge. No one closes like Trump. He did in 2016. Obviously, he did it in 2020. Remember, there were polls that were an NBC poll showed that Biden was going to win by 14 points. They were just off by 10. All right. And no one closes like Trump. No one gets the vote out like Trump. And Hillary saw her polls begin to evaporate in the final week of 2016. And Kamala is seeing that very same evaporation in the final 3 weeks. And it's already happened. It's already started. When you compare the national polling to the swing state polling, take a look at this. Things only end up getting worse for Cackles. This is the RCP average. This is the this is the Real Clear Politics polling aggregate that averages out all the polling in the swing states, the good, the bad, the ugly. All the polls are averaged out together. All the puff polls are included in this. And look at it. Trump is now officially leading in every single swing state, the big 7. Every single one. Trump is leading in the polling aggregate. No cherry picking polls here. He's leading in every single battleground state with all the polls, the good, the bad, the ugly, all averaged together. The historian Larry Schweikert reminds us here that Trump consistently outperforms his polling average by at least 2 points. So Trump outperforms his polling average by around 2%. Which is clearly getting outside the margin of error. This would be a blowout if that's the case. And he adds wonderfully in Larry Schweikert fashion, Cackles is hyena toast. By the way, do you see that Twitter handle there at Larry Schwu at 94560? Go over there and subscribe. Larry got, for whatever reason, got locked out of his original X account, his Twitter account. He had over 100,000 followers. He can't get back in. Something happened. He can't get back in. So he's rebuilding his Twitter. Go there and show Larry some love. Give him some follows there, and you'll love his Twitter feed. It's X feed, I should say. Absolutely so brilliant, very informative. Keep you up to date on the elections on a daily basis. And the polls are very important here too, because what they're doing is they're in effect putting Kamala in a doom loop. Okay, do not discount the significance of polls for actually further destroying Kamala. She is putting herself and her people are putting her in a doom loop, meaning she's seeing these polls, they're seeing their polls, particularly their internal polls, and they're horrible, they're awful. So what does that force them to do? Well, it forces them to do this, to get in front of Brett Baer. It forces them to do more interviews. And the more interviews they do, what? Right? The interviews are an abject disaster. I mean, name me one single interview that's actually helped her to date. I mean, people see a talentless, low IQ puppet. And so the more interviews she does, what happens to the polls? The polls get even worse. So that's what's called the doom loop. The bad polls make her do more interviews. The more interviews end up making her polls worse. And she spirals out. And the betting markets are certainly taking notice. Again, in fairness, or just in full disclosure, I'm not a big fan of betting markets because they're reactive, not predictive, and they're too subject to artificial manipulation. But take a look at this. This is the latest from Polymarket. Trump's now opened up his highest lead ever, his widest and highest lead ever in the predictions for the White House. He's now clocking in at 24% lead over Kamala, 62 to 38. It's gone up. It's gone up nearly 3 points since the disastrous Brett Baer interview. So no matter how much Democrats are trying to spin that thing, and it is desperate, it is. What happened to Mark Cuban? Everyone's saying, like he's wearing those glasses now and he looks like Rachel Maddow. I mean, I don't know what MSNBC does to people. I mean, Joe Scarborough, my heavens. But anyway, or Mike Steele. Mike Steele used to be the head of the RNC. Mike Steele was the head of the RNC. Alas, it's not just Polymarket. Trump is running away with it on Kalshi as well. Kalshi is another betting market site. Kalshi was one of the more stubborn ones of late. They were favoring Harris even while Polymarket started to break for Trump. No more. According to the Kalshi betting market, Trump is winning literally every single swing state, for the exception of Nevada, and where they're tied. Oh, and you'll love this. Do you remember the Philadelphia Inquirer piece we highlighted a couple of weeks back? How working class residents in Philly, particularly Latino working class districts, they were all jumping ship and voting Trump. Well, now Politico is sounding the alarm. With literally just 2.5 weeks to go. It's a little late, don't you think, Politico? It's because of the in-person early voting. But we got warning signs with the mail-in ballot requests. We're already seeing it. But it's the same alarm. You're losing the Latino vote, Kamala. You're losing the Latino vote in the swing states. The Latino vote is inordinately moving over to Trump. The problem with sounding the alarm this late in the game is that Democrats have been leaking Latino voters for actually years now. That same Philadelphia Inquirer article pointed out that we already started to see this mass defection 2020. Biden actually performed, you'll find this interesting. Biden actually performed worse than Hillary in 41 of Philly's 66 political wards. I'll say that again. Biden actually performed worse than Hillary in 41 of Philly's 66 political wards. So they're starting to lose their huge margins in places like Philly. And that hemorrhaging started years ago. And it's obviously a little late to sound the alarm here. Now, one thing that may be going on that Robert Barnes' theory. Tell me what you think of this. He has a very interesting theory. Barnes thinks that the Democrats have become victims of their own propaganda. In other words, Democrats actually, being in their little echo chamber, they actually believed they won 2020 fair and square. They convinced themselves that 2020 was completely organic and that they could sit back and expect it to happen all over again without having to do much. So they're being caught flat-footed here. They're flat-footed in terms of public opinion. Remember, Biden was up 10 points this time in 2020, right? Biden had a 10-point lead this time in 2020. Kamala, if she's lucky, has a 1-point lead in the polling average, the RCP aggregate. They're being caught flat-footed in the polling. They're being caught flat-footed in terms of their getting out the vote campaigns. They've been destroyed. They've been decimated in voter registration. They've been decimated in requests for absentee ballots. They're getting decimated, as you can see, in the in-person early voting. Their vote simply isn't coming out. It's not coming out in Arizona. It's not coming out in Georgia. It's not coming out in North Carolina. It's not coming out in Pennsylvania. It's not coming out in Virginia. And by the way, have you seen Virginia? The Republicans just keep crushing it. They just keep crushing it like never before. They're ahead right now beyond where they were in 2021 when Glenn Youngkin went on to win the state, when they went on to win the just down ticket. Governor, attorney general, lieutenant governor. It's just the House. It's crazy. They're ahead. Now, again, I don't want to get your hopes up with Virginia. Right? It's not a matter of whether Trump actually wins Virginia. It's a matter of Kamala struggling in a state that Biden won by 10 points. The last time a Democrat won with the minimal margins it looks like she could win with was Hillary when she won it by 5 in 2016. And how did that turn out for her? So if Kamala is struggling in Virginia, you can be assured that it is catastrophic for her in Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania that all vote significantly to the right of Virginia. So Barnes thinks that the Democrats have fallen victim to their own propaganda. They actually believe that 2020 was organic and they could just sit back and think it's all going to happen on its own all over again when it never really did in the first place. And it's obviously not. It's not happening nowhere. And it's too late. They've been caught flat-footed. They've got 2.5 weeks. And again, for you doomers out there, you got on my nerves last Monday night. You doomers out there. We are nowhere seeing 2020-like results anywhere in this election. What happened on November 3rd had a precursor to it. That's why I'm constantly showing you what's going on right now in the absentee ballot votes, in the voter registration, in the in-person absentee, in the in-person voting, early voting. I'm trying to show you every step of the way that 2020 and 2024 are two fundamentally different elections. All of those verticals, as it were, from voter registration to early vote ballot requests to in-person early voting, they were all favoring the Democrats in 2020. It all swung radically to the Democrats in 2020. It's now going the opposite way. So what happened, the point is on November 3rd, that night, that was the culmination of all of these pro-Democrat dynamics that were leading up to it. That's not happening. Plus the polls. I mean, Biden was up by 10. It's just not. Nowhere are we seeing 2020-like results. Please get that in your mind here. Nowhere are we seeing 2020-like results. And now Democrats are admitting it. Wait until you see the panic. If that doesn't convince you, wait until you see the panic, the legacy media, which never even evidenced the slightest sweat in 2020. Wait till you see the panic that's coming out of the legacy media. This could absolutely make your day. But first, gang, you have got to stop putting off what you all need to do. You know you need to do this. If you have not secured the deed to your home as of yet, you need to click on that link below right now and protect yourself and your loved ones. It's as easy as possible, and you're going to be so happy you did it. Because I got to be honest, I was shocked when I found out how easy it was to access the deed to my house, and not just access it, but change it, gang. The deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. But the problem is that the deeds to all our homes are now online, and criminals are free to find your deed, forge your signature, refile as the new owner of your home, take out tons of loans using your home's equity. And then what do? They stick you with all the debt. And don't think homeowners insurance is going to bail you out, because it doesn't. So that's where our good friends over at Home Title Lock come in. They're amazing. Home Title Lock, they give you the peace of mind that the deed to your home is absolutely, totally, completely protected 24/7. Click on that link below right now. Use promo code Turley Talks. All you got to do then is enter your address for your no obligation home title scan to see if you've already been a victim of deed theft. It's a $100 value, absolutely free. It's something that I did, and it's totally free if you use my promo code Turley Talks. So don't wait for the worst to happen, only to regret you didn't do something about it when you could have. Do what I've done. Do what countless patrons have done. Click on that link below right now and secure your home today. All right, take a look at this from Vox. That's Vox with a V, by the way, not Fox. Vox is very left-wing, very, very left-wing. Yeah, even more so than Fox. Ha, ha, ha. Rupert Murdoch, I hate him. But anyway, but look at this. Kamala's efforts at reaching the union vote has been a bust. An absolute bust. She is poised. She is on track to perform even worse than Hillary Clinton among union households. And you're going to have to let that hit you. She is on track to perform even worse than Hillary Clinton did among union households. That cost Hillary the election. That cost Hillary the election. What have I been saying to you guys? What have I been saying for months now? And not just me. Rich Barris has been saying, Robert Barnes, Larry Schweikert. We talked about this on yesterday's video. Did you see the video between Biden and Obama at Ethel Kennedy's funeral in Washington the other day? The New York Post actually hired a professional lip reader who said that Biden told Obama, she's not as strong as me. And Obama responded with, I know, but we still have some time. And by the way, no, you don't. That's whistling past the graveyard. You got 2.5 weeks, right? Mass opinion don't generally move in 2.5 weeks. But regardless, I argued in yesterday's video that what I believe Joe meant there was that he was stronger in states like Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, precisely because he was still relatively popular with the working class, with the pro-union vote. Old Scranton Joe, right? He still had support of a lot of traditional working class voters. And I can assure you that is exactly what he meant about being stronger than Kamala. In 2020, for right or for wrong, Joe got back a good portion of the working class vote that defected away from Hillary back in 2016. It was so bad, remember, so many working class voters, particularly white working class voters in states like Wisconsin, Iowa, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, so many of them had defected over to Trump that even if Hillary had gotten Obama's level of black vote, she still would have lost because she lost the white vote, particularly the white working class vote, by that much. Gang, this Vox report is freaking out because they see Kamala losing that vote even worse than Hillary. Remember, this election doesn't come down to who wins California, New York, or Illinois. It comes down to who can win Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, North Carolina, all heavily pro-union working class states. And Kamala's hemorrhaging that vote even worse than Hillary. And I've been arguing that for years now, and that we're seeing this mass political realignment among the working class. It's basically a mass revolt against globalist economic policies that Kamala appears to be totally in favor of. Trump was the first candidate back in 2016, and in fairness, Bernie Sanders as well on the left, the populist left. But that was the first time we began to see two major candidates put globalist concerns front and center before the electorate. We were seeing it in Europe at the exact same time with the Brexit referendum, right around the same time, and that was voted on in June of 2016. And the key to this political realignment is that the working class no longer sees politics as left versus right, or liberal versus conservative, or Democrat versus Republican. They don't see politics in terms of this horizontal divide. They see politics in terms of this vertical divide. The people versus the political class, the ruled versus the rulers, workers versus globalists, right? Men versus the managerial class, ordinary Americans versus the oligarchs. And they see Trump as their champion and Kamala as their enemy. And that is absolutely crushing her in these key swing states that are comprised inordinately of working class voters. And so now we're beginning to see the political obituaries coming out. A number of outlets want to be noted by the pundit class as the first to notice the Kamala collapse. Politico has a piece out just the other day lamenting that Kamala is losing Pennsylvania, claiming she doesn't have much of a ground game in the Keystone State. In other words, it seems to be something very comparable to what Robert Barnes is arguing. She just assumed that 2020 is going to happen all over again, when of course it's not. She's losing. Pennsylvania is slipping beyond her grasp, which means it's over. He who wins Pennsylvania wins the election, obviously. You got The Hill publishing this just a couple of days before that. 4 reasons why Harris is losing. And just a few days before that, you got Democrats start hitting the panic button. You got Harry Enton of CNN warning that things are looking very dire for Kamala. You got Mark Halperin on Tucker predicting the single biggest mental health crisis in American history if Trump wins. Talk about a meltdown. You got James Carville. He's having visible meltdowns on live TV. They all seem to be seeing the same thing. She is losing. And now we're getting reports from Politico that D.C. bureaucratic employees, the swamp creatures themselves, permanent Washington, are currently panicking and preparing to hunt for new jobs as the election looms. So, of course, we'll continue to keep a very, very close eye on how things develop over the next 2.5 weeks. But if what has been happening of late continues on into November, that Al Smith, Walter Mondale dinner curse may have just found another victim. Over to you, gang. Over to you as our moderators assemble your questions. Obviously, Americans are tired and frustrated by a stalling economy, inflation, endless wars, and the relentless assault on our values. But thankfully, there's companies like Patriot Mobile that still believe in America and our Constitution. I'm proud to partner with Patriot Mobile because they're on the front lines fighting for the First and Second Amendments, sanctity of life, and our military and first responder heroes. Take a stand for conservative causes and put America first by switching to Patriot Mobile right now. You'll get the same nationwide coverage as the big providers because Patriot Mobile operates across all 3 major networks. Plus, they back their service with a coverage guarantee. Their 100% US-based customer service team will find the best plan for your needs. Keep your number, keep your phone, or upgrade, whatever you want. Go to patriotmobile.com/TurleyTalks or give them a call at 972-PATRIOT. That's 972-PATRIOT. Right now, you're going to get a free month when you use the promo code TurleyTalks. So don't get fooled by other providers pretending to share your values or have the same coverage. They don't, and they can't. Join me. Switch to America's only Christian conservative mobile provider, Patriot Mobile, today. All right, what do you got, guys? What do you got? No dooming here. I don't want no dooming. I worked too hard for this dooming nonsense. All right. Rotcore back from Cava di Tirreni, Italy. Oh, Italy. I love it. I love it. Talk Turley to me. Oh, I hope I did, Rot. I hope I did. ROT Corp, I should say. I hope I did. Things are good. Things are very, very good. And welcome back. I love Italy. Been to Italy 3 times, particularly northern Italy. I've done that twice, and then to southern Tuscany, Rome, and so forth. But my heart is in northern Italy, Verona in particular, Venice, of course, and particularly Italian wine. The Valpolicella, the Amarone Valpolicella, the Valley of Many Cellars. That's my favorite wine. America the Free 76. What angle do you think the media has in starting to be positive about Trump and his supporters admitting Kamala's losing? Is this an admission that we're winning, or is there something more sinister? Come on, America the Free. That's kind of that subtle dooming. There's something more sinister about the whole thing. No one trusts them anymore. Now, what you just said there is absolutely true. They are going through a massive crisis of legitimacy. Absolutely. That's totally valid. Gallup just came out with a poll showing the lowest levels of trust and confidence in legacy media ever. It's in the low 30s right now, and it's become partisan. It's very clear. Vast majority of Democrats support it. Super majority of Republicans want nothing to do with it. So it's become a thoroughly partisanized and poisoned information system, propaganda system at this point. No, I think the media is a little dumbfounded. If I'm prone to Barnes's theory. I think they're the ones who've been caught flat-footed. I think they're the ones who ironically got duped. They actually believed 2020 was legit. And so they thought it was going to be a shoo-in for them to win again in 2024. And it's not. They have no indicator in their favor right now. The polls are a disaster. I don't care what poll you could cherry pick polls to your blue in the face. I promise you, Biden was twice as had a twice as high margin as she has now. Hillary had a twice as high margin as she has now. Doesn't matter what poll you come up with. The voter registration, Republicans are crushing it in every single state, for the exception of Colorado. 66 of Pennsylvania's 67 counties have all swung to the right. The one county that hasn't has swung to the left only by 0.2%. Everywhere we're seeing voter registration. Gallup's voter identification, the single best, most accurate predictor of the popular vote outcome, usually within a point. The latest one they just dropped have the electorate identifying Republican +7. They've never seen margins. They've never seen the electorate identify more Republican than Democrat in all of their voter identification polls. They've never seen that. Now they're seeing it as +7. Now that'll get aggregated. It'll probably be more like Republican 3 or 4. But that, if it's based on their prior polling lined up with actual voting tallies, the popular vote tallies, Trump should win the popular vote by 2 points based on that, maybe even 3. It's absolutely stunning. And then all the early voting, the absentee ballot requests and returns, and the in-person early voting, it's all swinging to the right. Democrats are all down. In every indicator, Democrats are down, Republicans are up. This is not 2020. 2020 was the total opposite of that. When you compared 2020 to 2016, 2020, the Democrats were running away with it. Right? 2016, the voter ID was 3 points. In 2020, voter identification was plus Democrat by 5 points. So it was almost double what it was in 2016. So this whole idea of these mythical phantom trucks coming out of nowhere in the middle of the night, that they had harbingers, they had precursors to them. There are none right now. That's the key. There are none. Again, I'm not saying it can't happen, but I certainly wouldn't be obsessing over it happening. And I would do something to volunteer to make sure it doesn't happen, to make sure you're on the front lines in the polling stations if it were to happen, and you will catch it with your phones for the world to see. We were caught off guard back in November 2020. So no, I think the media is just beside themselves. I don't think they know what to make of this. They are befuddled. They look like they are in absolute bewilderment right now. They really don't know what to say. Terry, have you heard anything about early voting is proceeding in the disaster area of North Carolina? I hear there is one county, one or two counties that, yes, are having a rough go at it. But for the most part, is from what I have been hearing, particularly on X and the accounts I follow, they're saying it's actually pretty good. Remember, again, Mike Whatley, the head of RNC, he is from North Carolina. He transformed the North Carolina Republican Party into a supermajority party in North Carolina. He's not going to let them be forgotten or disenfranchised. So we should be good to go. And all the early voting that we're seeing now suggests that North Carolina's could be, as like I showed to you today, this could be an absolute blowout. Paul, in reference to the soundless conversation between Biden and Obama caught the other day, where they use lip reading to translate, what do you think Obama meant? Like, we still got time? I don't know. I don't know if that was just banter. We still got time. No, you don't. You don't have a lot of time. You really don't. This is basically the election. We're here. It's not, the needle doesn't move. if the needle moves, it tends to move in Trump's direction because he's such a good closer with all of these massive rallies and get out the vote campaign, and no one gets out the vote like Trump. He's a voter turnout machine. I don't know. Again, it could be an October surprise. We'll see. But it's what are you going to do to Trump that hasn't been done to him already? From the Billy Bush tapes to to all the lawfare, the indictments, to the 24/7, 8-year-long media blitzkrieg of calling him a Nazi and a fascist and dictator, authoritarian, to getting shot and then even surviving another assassination attempt. What the hell are they going to do to him? That's what I mean. They made him literally, bulletproof. That's Jack Posobiec has a new book coming out with that title. But I don't know if you guys got to see my little appearance there on that amazing show, on Jack's show. He's amazing. So they just made him bulletproof. So I don't know what they think they can do. We'll see. But I have a feeling at this point he's whistling past the graveyard. Again, the difference between us and them is we're steeled. We're ready for anything. We're looking every day. What's going to be the October surprise? My little joke was that I think we saw on, when was it? Was it Wednesday night? When was the Brett Baer episode? I think we saw the very first ever self-inflicted October surprise ever from Cackles Kamala, from Kamala. You okay? Are you okay? So we'll see. We'll see, Paul. We'll keep an eye on it, obviously. Franz, with their credibility in a perpetual freefall, as if jumping out of an airplane without a parachute. Did Brett Baer prevent Fox from reaching terminal velocity? I think so. I think that was the best. Brett knew that if he went into that interview with kid gloves, if he pulled a Dana Bash of CNN, here, let me give you multiple choice answers for my question. Did you flip-flop because A, you've changed your mind, or B, because you've always actually meant the same thing? It's not flip-flop. I mean, if he went in with kid gloves, I think that would have been it for Fox. It's already it for me. I don't watch Fox. I never watch. I'll watch clips, on X or on social media, but I haven't tuned into Fox and probably since 2021 after J6. I was so nauseated by what Brett Baer did with the decision desk calling they called Arizona before they called Florida. Just let that hit you. They called Arizona before they called Florida. That's when it all just seemed to just go downhill, when Fox News stabbed us in the back. So I've never forgiven them. But if he had not come in and given her most pointed scrutiny yet, I think Fox would have hemorrhaged another 1 million viewers, and that would have been rough. That would have been rough to recover from. So I think he knew he had to go in and do his job. And that's the irony. That's the irony. All you got to do is do your job. Do we ever complain with the badgering of questions that Trump gets? We complain when there is a legitimate sabotage going on. Yes, we complain about that when moderators, when it's 3 against 1 and moderators actually violate their own rules that they agreed to. Then we get pissed off because at least we want fair play. But we love it. We love the way Trump and J.D. Vance are able to handle the fire. We love it because they return fire with fire. They're both bulletproof in this sense. So I think it was a great interview, and he needed to do a great interview if Fox News was going to maintain any semblance of their audience that they still are desperately trying to cling on to. Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, since Clemdia Harris went down faster than Willie Brown's boxers on Fox News the other night, do you think she's still planning on going on Joe Rogan? No, I do not. I think they're cutting their losses. They're cutting the bait. I do not expect her to see on Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan would destroy her. I mean, a 2-hour, real in-depth conversation. I think they're scared to death. I don't know. Maybe they can get Rogan to agree ahead of time. I'm still, I agree with Cernovich on this. I think Rogan has been a coward on this one. He's only now interviewing Trump because of Elon Musk, because of Jordan Peterson behind him, because of Russell Brand, because it looks like he's winning. It's only now that he's going to interview him. RFK, of course, he said he was going to throw his support behind Robert King before he dropped out. So I think the guy's a little bit of a, kind of fella, but we'll see. Patriot Jules, do you see how they spin the bad interview? It was pretty torturous spin. It was pretty dizzying spin. I can assure you, Democrats will want to forget that interview as fast as they possibly can. They just lie. They're liars. They don't know the difference, They don't know what the definition of a woman is. They don't know the definition of truth. So it's just that simple. They're just liars. Lynn, if Harris loses the presidential election, how can they let her oversee the electoral college procedure in Congress? Great opportunity to ignore concerns of election integrity from the states, just like Pence did in 2020. Yeah, but she would have to go the opposite and do what Pence failed to do. So I don't think you have to worry about that. I don't think we're going to see anything like that. If they tried to pull any shenanigans at the level of certification, the Democrats probably wouldn't be a majority party for the next generation. Franz, would devoidism be an accurate term to use when describing what we are witnessing from the Harris campaign? I love that. Devoidism. Yeah, that's a very good word. Devoidism. She really is, isn't she? I mean, she's devoid of so much. She's devoid of rhetorical skill. She's devoid of sequential thinking. That's why she repeats herself constantly. She talks in tautologies. What was it she was just saying, what she said to Brett? We're trying to secure entrance points at points of entrances, something like that. So a tautology is A. I mean, she says like the same thing a lot. And again, I have no problem if you want to repeat. Trump repeats himself a lot, but he's doing that in order to go to the next thought. There's a sequential pattern to his thinking, and Trump likes particular. I mean, again, he's a business guy. He likes particulars. He likes to talk how we're going to actually do something, how we're going to actually build the wall, how we're going to actually implement tariffs, and how those tariffs are actually going to help American workers, and on and on. I mean, he gets really, how he's going to bring values back. You might think it's trite, but he said, we're going to say Merry Christmas again. Again, it's very specific. Whereas Herschel, I want an opportunity economy. And it's just, what the hell does that mean? I'm going to give this money for these people, this money for them. But how are you going to possibly do that? How are you going to even pay for that? How are you going to get the Senate or Congress to even remotely agree with that? You haven't so far? You haven't been able to do a damn thing. So anyway, devoidism is good. Yeah, she's devoid of policy. She's devoid of substance. She's devoid of rhetorical skill. She's devoid of sequential thinking. She's devoid of humor. She's not a funny person at all. She has talk about a sense of humor deficiency. I mean, wow. I mean, again, she did send in that cringe video to Al Smith dinner, and I mean, it was cringe. It was so cringe. I couldn't watch the whole thing. I turned it off. It was a skit with Molly, whatever her name is. And it was just so bad. It wasn't even remotely. Nobody was laughing in the audience. Nobody was like, it was apparently, word is it was extremely awkward. Everyone was like, and so that's why when Trump got up and said, I can't even believe she's not here, and everyone just started to clap. I mean, It was an insult. She did not ingratiate herself to the Catholic vote for sure. So obviously she's devoid of political sense, political strategy. Yeah, I love it. Devoidism. I'm writing it down, Franz. I'm writing it down. Devoidism. Josh, have you heard anything as far as shortage of poll watchers in key swing states? I have not. Again, as I understand it, Laura Trump and Mike Whatley are on top of it. But again, if there's any concern, go to earlyvoteaction.org. If I recall, it's a .org, not .com. Earlyvoteaction.org. It might be .com. And see. Also check out our Ask Them if how it is there. Also go to last week's live stream. I forgot the title of it. We have tons of links of resources you can go to make sure that the election is secured. Josh, is Georgia Election Board appealing to the state court's decision, the state Supreme Court, regarding the recent decision about the hand counted ballot? I believe so. Yeah, the one judge who threw out, I think, was it for the state or for the county? I can't remember. But yeah, they are. They're on top. The Georgia Election Board, there are peeps. They've been doing an amazing job. And Georgia right now looks like, guys, I mean, Georgia looks like, again, it is stunning what's happening in Georgia right now. Both Georgia and Arizona. This looks like it's going to be Trump's revenge in Georgia and Arizona. And then that's it. He just needs to peel off one state, one of the blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania. It's over. America the Free, are we going to exhaust our early vote and not have many come out the day of, as is typical for the GOP base? Or do you think that the early voting is coming from low propensity voters? Great, America Free. Yeah, so you're very. That's why I love you guys. I read the whole, because my initial reaction is to say, no, because of low prop. And then boom, what do? You show me, you know exactly what you're talking about. So yeah, so the only stats that I have seen for low prop, no prop voters. So for people who don't know, a low propensity voter is somebody who hasn't voted like in the last 3 or 4 elections, and a no propensity voter is somebody who's not voted at all. This is their first time voting, or they just haven't voted forever. They may even have had to get re-registered. I don't know if the rolls got cleaned up. But the only numbers I've seen from Virginia, and Virginia Republicans are crushing it with no prop voters, no propensity voters. They have a clear lead, as well as low propensity, have a very clear lead. Some of them I've noticed, some are a little pair. So they'll do, the stats I've seen are who's getting voters who vote in the 4 of the last 4 elections. They tend to be overwhelmingly Democrat. But voters who voted in 0 of the last 4 elections are overwhelmingly pro-Trump and pro-Republican. Again, we saw the same thing with Brexit, where more Brits came out and voted to leave the EU than had ever voted for any politician or party in the UK's history. And they did that because low to no prop voters actually came out, said, finally, there's something I can vote for. Finally, I'm not, I don't feel like participating in this stupid establishment, Labor versus Tories. There's not a dime's worth of difference between them. Oh, you're putting an independence referendum on there? Sign me up. I'm coming. And that's the attraction of Trump. Is it Romney or Obama? I don't care. They're all the freaking same. I coming. Whoa, Trump's on the ballot. Let's go. I'm in. I love this guy. Any guy who says that, Kamala Harris shouldn't let her husband around nannies. I mean, I'm at a Catholic gathering to boot. I'm there. So no. So the one set of data that I've seen that keeps those stats show we are not cannibalizing our vote. That's for sure. James, is hate a tactic of the left? Ooh, that's very good. Is it a tactic? In rhetoric and in burning down cities and so forth, yes. But I would see it as more of a disposition. I think I think wokeness is a green light. It is permission given to hate. I will go even further. Wokeness, in effect, says, and you could see this at the end of Matt Walsh's "Am I a Racist?" It has actually a very brutal ending in many ways. I mean, it all works out. It's great, but I mean, there's a moment in that movie that's very hard to watch. And what you see is how wokeness doesn't just give you the green light to hate. It in effect imposes the obligation to hate. You're supposed to hate. This to me is why I despise the woke church. The woke church is the last thing you could ever even remotely describe as a legitimate Christian expression, because at its heart is hate. At its heart is absolute hate. Now, of course, they'll pin us on that. They'll say, oh, you're xenophobes. You're trying to build a wall. You're trying to keep people out of your country. Well, yeah, but that doesn't mean I hate them. I lock the door at night from my home, not because I hate the people on the outside, but because I love the people on the inside. I don't hate anybody. I want to protect the people I love from the potential of harm and danger. Just ask all the victims of it over the last 3.5 years. So I think wokeness perpetuates the obligation to hate. It's not just the disposition, it's the obligation. You ought to hate injustice. And if you don't, then you become a legitimate object of hate. And that's why it's so prone to violence. You, if anything, I'll even go so far again. You are, in many ways, obligated to respond physically, rhetorically, to injustice. Silence is compliance. So it is an ugly, pernicious, vile ideology. It is a fundamentalism. It is what's technically referred to as radical perspectivalism, which says it's my way or the highway. It is ironically, it is as anti-democratic as you can possibly get, because it refuses to even entertain, to even fathom an alternative to its perspective. Any alternative to the perspective is by definition racist, bigoted, phobic, and the like. So yeah, I think it actually cultivates a disposition of hate, which is the total opposite of what Plato and Aristotle and the classical Christian education tradition, and indeed classical education traditions throughout the world, sought to cultivate, which was love. And I mean that in its classical sense, a love for the true, the good, and the beautiful. Because love is the agency by which we are attracted and drawn to things. And in the ancient world, it was very important that you discern the moral nature of what you're being drawn to, because not everything we're attracted to, not everything we find beautiful is truly beautiful. And so that's the difference between the muses and the sirens. The muses are the daughters of Zeus, who inspire acts of truth, goodness, and beauty that lead to life. Whereas the sirens use seductive beauty to lead you to death. So that's the difference between a nude in an art gallery and porn, right? One leads to life, the other leads to death. One attracts, the other seduces. And so classical education was always about training the dispositions of the student to love rightly, to love the right things that enable for human flourishing, and to cut off lust. Love surrenders itself to the true, the good, and the beautiful. Lust seeks to control, manipulate, and dominate the true and the good and the beautiful. And that's wokeness to me. And wokeness is it. I have nothing good to say about it, obviously. Fastelon, the doom loop was inevitable, wasn't it? They tried to hide her, like Biden. That's right. Biden was calling it Biden basement strategy 2.0, but got shamed into starting to do interviews, which have required more interviews to clean up, which require more and more. Exactly. And everyone gets worse and worse and worse. That's right. Yeah, it is. I was reading Victor Davis Hanson the other day, and he used doom loop as well. More and more people are talking about the doom loop. Remember, she should never have had to have done this Brett Baier interview in the first place. She should never have had to done it in the first place. She did it because she's looking at her poll numbers, and they're cratering, and so her people don't know what else to do but to get her out there in front of more voters and hope, beyond hope, that her devoidism would not show. Alas, doom loop. Browning Man, Dr. Steve, does this look more like a Reagan landslide in '84? Seems every state is in play. I've got one of two. Or is it just we the people are fed up with the Orwellian media and the government telling us how to think? Okay, no, I don't. 84. I don't think we'll ever see an 84 again. Not now. Just the demographics have shifted in California. That's when California was still red. That's when Oregon and Washington could still be red. Those days are gone. We've become way too. Our demographics have become too brokenness versus status quoist. Everybody knows DC is broken. Everybody sees it. Brokenness, like us, say, okay, well, but it's broken beyond repair and it needs to be totally and completely revamped. So that's why we're all for Trump and J.D. Vance and Kennedy and Vivek and Elon Musk, all these outsiders to come in and completely revamp it. Status quoists believe, yes, it's broken, but it still has enough integrity within it to find its own solutions to the problems it creates. Believe it or not, that's what a lot of people believe. And just there's enough people who have been convinced of status quoism in California, in Illinois, and again, these New York, these hardcore metropolitan areas. So I don't think you're going to see anything like that. You could see something like 2008. You could see that 350 plus electoral votes. You could see that. If Virginia flips, if New Hampshire flips, if Maine flips, yeah, you could see that. New Mexico flips. I mean, that in many ways, Minnesota, stunningly, right? And that in many ways as well. I still a little early, but we may in fact be seeing new swing states. We'll see in 2.5 weeks. If Arizona, Georgia, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina are wrapped up the way I think they're wrapped up, and Nevada as well, are wrapped up the way I think they're getting wrapped up, way beyond the margin of error, fraud, all that sort of stuff. Well, then, then we're looking at new swing states then, aren't we? We're looking at Minnesota, we're looking at Virginia, we're looking at New Hampshire, we're looking at Maine, we're looking at New Mexico. So yeah, I mean it's incredible stuff. So no, I don't see 1984. I think that's just a different demographic. I don't think we're seeing that again. Even Obama couldn't do that. But he won, he won by 7 points. But I do think we could possibly see Obama like enthusiasm coming out. Do you think that Kamala's travesty of an interview on Fox should tank her already fledgling campaign? How does she come back from that failure? Can she? I'm with you. How do Patriots stop the steal this November? We got to make sure that Trump wins. Yeah. I mean, I did in my video. I kind of went on. I went out on a limb and I said it's over. I mean, I thought that sunk her. I think that was it. Her last chance was to try to win over some tentative Trump support. People were supporting Trump who watch Fox News, they support Trump, but they're old school Republicans, so mainline neocon Republicans, Bill Kristol like Republican, but they can't stand Kamala. They didn't go over to the dark side like he did, so they're still voting for Trump. But they were hoping they can woo some. I don't see how she even remotely came close to doing that. It was such a train wreck of an interview. I mean, everyone saw it. Everyone saw it. Even the ones who were trying to convince you they didn't see it. No, in terms of avoiding the steal, my recommendations go to last week's, just 1 week ago. You could just go click on the our live stream tab on YouTube, and it should be the third video down, so it'll be from 7 days ago. Click on that, and then you'll see a bunch of links, and there are a bunch of election integrity links that you can go to, find something to volunteer with or to give or whatever you need to do that you think you can do and that you want to do, to be a part of solidifying the protection of this election from any kind of shenanigans. That's the best thing to do. To vote, you got to go and vote. Nothing, of course, beats that. You can volunteer at your local precinct, become a precinct worker, become a poll worker. Make sure you are auditing the vote, as it were, as it comes in at real time. So that's definitely what I would do. But again, I honestly, you guys could have the last laugh on this, I mean, but I'm not seeing 2020 conditions. 2020, what happened on November 3rd was foreshadowed by at least 3 weeks of activity where the Democrats looked like they were running away with it. Looked like they were running away. They were up 5 in the polls, in the national average in terms of voter identification. It was a plus 5 Democrat electorate that gave Biden a plus 4.5 quote unquote victory. The voter registration, which is a lagging indicator to identity, but it was plus Democrat, whereas now it's plus Republican. The early voting, absentee ballots, Democrats ran away with it. We weren't even remotely competitive. We didn't even really understand absentee mail-in ballot voting at that time. So Democrats were running away with it there. Early in-person early voting, Democrats were running away with it. So what we did is we tried to make up for all of that on election day, and we came within 40,000 votes of doing it. Even with all of what happened there, we came within 40,000 votes. Now Republicans they understand what early voting is all about, in-person, mail-in, absentee. They understand it all. We understand the importance of high registration margins, especially in places like Arizona, and they're crushing it. So I'm just not seeing 2020 right now. I'm just not. But that doesn't mean you don't do your part, by all means. So check out those links and sign up for whatever you think you would want to be doing to make sure Trump wins an absolute blowout. Mevi Deloca, is it true 1 in 3 Kamala voters is just as stupid as the other two? Sorry, I can help myself. Oh, that's hilarious. Yes, I believe it is true that 1 in 3 Kamala voters are just as stupid as the other two. I love it. I love it. That would have been a good joke for Trump the other night at the Al Smith dinner. That's great. Linda, how likely is it that the Dems will swap Kamala with a Hillary or Michelle at this late date? So I did a video on that. It's impossible. I looked into it. It's impossible. It's too late. She's already on the ballot, and she'll be on the ballot. I guess, again, they could pull Claire McCaskill. Her husband died for Senate in Missouri. Her husband died during the campaign, and so she stood in for him, but he was still on the ballot. I guess they can do something like that. But no, they're stuck with her now. There's nothing they can do. Maximilian, what are the strengths and weaknesses of our side and of our enemies? I think that the strength on let's start with the enemies. That's a good one. They have all the cultural institutions. They have all the levers of powers, we say. They literally have the establishment. So they've got the legacy media. They control it. The legacy media is lockstep with the legacy media is Kamala's campaign. They own academia. Again, lockstep. All the polls show it. Conservative professors are down to about 2% of faculty members at this point. You see that when they donate money to political parties, 98% goes to Democrats, and they own the federal bureaucracies. They own the national security agencies. They are the establishment. Again, it's not so much I say Democrats, but Democrats are just they're the party that sort of established the deep state. They established the establishment. They founded the establishment, the legacy media and academia and Hollywood and so on. And but Republicans play right along if they want to profit and increase their power and wealth. I think that in many ways that's what we're seeing with Mark Cuban right now. Just basically sold his soul in a very odd and strange way. So, and I think it's right too. Some said they're just bored. Billionaires like Cuban are just bored. They have nothing to do. And so you see with Soros, they get into our lives and they try to control our lives. They get in with the Oprah crowd and so on. So they own everything. And so they have tremendous power. They have tremendous power to thwart organic movements that seek to be freed from that power. On our side, we have the fact that the ideological connective tissue that gave them originally that power, that gave them the moral high ground to achieve that power, that we're on the side of freedom and liberty and democracy, and the Soviet Union is the side of oppression and authoritarianism and tyranny. That ideological high ground has collapsed. It's turned into wokeness now. And now they look utterly ridiculous. They look utterly hysterical. And the more woke they get, the more hysterical they become. And now nobody likes it. Not even Bill Maher, who will vote for them in the end because he's intellectually, I'll just say he's intellectually dishonest. But they'll vote for these guys in the end. But even people on the left still see how utterly hysterical and ridiculous the woke left has become in trying to impose this bizarre, really what it is, a kind of religious fundamentalism on the whole of society through this clerisy class as opposed to a clerical class, say in the Middle Ages. So I think they've lost their ideological justification for their power in that they stand up against communism and authoritarianism. Again, they're trying to continue to hold on to that now. This is a democracy, right? But they've lost it. It just rings hollow in people's ears. We're post-ideological. We're now identity-oriented. Sam Huntington talked about that. And being identity-oriented, where all of our politics are increasingly taking on identity indicators: nation, culture, custom, tradition, faith, family, freedom. We just don't buy it anymore. So I think the winds of history, as it were, the flow of history is moving in our direction. We've got the winds at our back, and we're assembling quite the dream team, because more and more enormous talent is getting excommunicated from the woke faithful. And I think now it's our side, the parallel economy side, the patriot economy side. It's our side that's rescuing stranded NASA astronauts, because NASA doesn't have the budget or the competence to be able to go out and get them. So SpaceX goes up and gets them. And our FEMA doesn't have the funds or the competence to help out citizens in Western North Carolina have been ravaged by a flood. So no problem. Starlink will help them out. There is a renaissance going on in red state economies. We're becoming the Singapore, as it were, of an increasingly dilapidated Detroitification of blue states. So I think we've got the winds at our backs. The world is moving in our direction, and whether or not DC can continue to try to thwart that come November, I think means little to the long-term power of our movement, and I think how it's destined to win. MAGA 24 ever. I love it. Dr. Steve, do you see the irony that in Biden's disastrous debate performance, his wife praised him that he answered every question right? By contrast, in Kamala's horrible Fox News interview with Bret Baier, she sunk herself by not answering any of his questions. Beautiful. That's so true. Seems like Kamala sabotages herself when she answers questions. I wouldn't change a thing. Or when she doesn't, when she deflects. Yeah, no, it's brilliant. That's brilliant, MAGA 24 ever. Absolutely brilliant. Yeah, at the very least, Joe answered the question or attempted to answer the questions. Whereas Kamala's attempt at diverting and deflecting was so painfully obvious. It was so cringeworthy. Yeah, I'm with you. That is incredibly ironic. Who would have ever imagined Joe was the smart one? Rock Dog, Dr. Steve, based on the numbers, I think Trump will flip Virginia. All right, you're one of the believers. You're not alone there, Rock Dog. That's for sure. The numbers are much better in 2024 than they were in 2021 for Youngkin. I believe New York and maybe New Jersey may flip too. Your thoughts? All right, Rock Dog. Put down the cooking, Sherry. No, yeah, well, I think it is very symbolic for Trump to end his campaign, more or less. I think it'll be one of the last Trump rallies in Madison Square Garden. And, they're saying, New York is in play. Lee Zeldin who came within 5 points of becoming governor of New York. But winning a governorship and winning the presidency is very different in a state, right? Just ask Ron DeSantis, right? He thinks he's got a shot. We'll see. Right now, I'm not seeing it. The margins are too high from what we're seeing. The polling miss would have to be astronomical. That doesn't mean it can't be. Biden was supposed to win. The Washington Post, just again a pathetic left-wing rag at this point. The Washington Post, I think it was ABC Washington Post, had Biden up 17 in Wisconsin. He won it by 0.6%. Won by 0.6%. They had him up by 17 a couple of weeks before. So, there could be a major poll miss. But no, I'm with you. I'd love to see Virginia. Just Virginia is so hard in the end. It's just it's always Northern Virginia, Nova, that comes on out at the last minute, just kind of overwhelms the polls. They've been doing it every single election cycle for the last 20 years. I don't know. I'll keep abreast of what Rich Barris has to say, because Rich polled Virginia freaking brilliantly in 2021. He nailed Virginia down to the county with Glenn Youngkin. So keep an eye on what Rich is saying. He may not be able to do granular polling like that in a presidential cycle. But if Rich starts saying Virginia's in play, it's in play. If Rich starts saying it's in play, he predicted Glenn Youngkin would win. He predicted his exact margin of, I think it was a 2.1%. He predicted his exact margin. So if Rich says it's in play, it's in play. Keep an eye on that. Seth Keshel is also saying that Virginia is looking very North Carolina. What did he say? Virginia is looking kind of more and more like North Carolina, something like that. And he said Pennsylvania is looking more and more like Ohio. He's really good. He's a data analyst guy, a numbers guy. So keep an eye on it. I'm with you. I'm praying. I pray every day that Trump grants us this victory, and that would be part of the miracle of it. Quark, hey, Dr. Steve, what are your thoughts about the Department of Defense manual 5240? I can already tell you I have no idea. September update that now allows the Secretary of Defense can send troops to assist local law enforcement can use lethal force to perceive so-called reasonable threats. Yeah, Quark, I don't know. I couldn't even remotely comment. I don't know. My only comment would be please do not use these whatever they happen to be to spread fear, dread, defeatism, and demoralization. Please do not Denethor anybody. Do not pour oil over yourself, light yourself on fire, and jump off a cliff. Please do not do that. One of my favorite scenes in Return of the King. Nathan, hello, Dr. Steve. As a Christian, I'm seeing more and more biblical prophecies come true. I believe the Antichrist will need globalism in order to be successful. With globalism dying, how do you see that lining up biblically? Well, I don't know, Nathan. I'm not looking at eschatology that way. But we don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know when Christ himself said, you do not know the day or the time. You can read the signs. We can certainly read signs. And again, I tend to see maybe here, this is a better way of looking at it. I tend to see passages like Matthew 24 and what is it? Is it Mark 13? I'm trying to remember. Luke 21. I tend to see those as what's the term? They're fractals. So as every person is an image of God, we are a symbol of something wider than ourselves. Events are symbols of something wider than itself. So the patterns that we see in Matthew 24, Mark 13, Luke 21. Luke 21 is very clearly, I will be happy to debate you on this. Luke 21 is very clearly about the fall of the temple in 70 AD. I mean, it talks explicitly about the Roman armies coming and you need to flee. But the interesting thing is the same language is used in Mark 13 and Matthew 24 that do seem to suggest an event that's much more further off and that may have more cosmic consequences to it. So that's this fractal nature, that what happened in 70 AD is a symbol of what's going to happen, say with the fall of Constantinople, which was a huge blow to the Eastern Orthodox world, or the fall of Rome, for that matter, in 476, 410, and then eventually in 476. So I say all of that to say globalism may be the fractal that points to something much larger than itself, much later on. I don't link anything to my eschatology doesn't link anything to 1947. Just so you know, I don't say, oh, okay, well, it's got to be within a generation. Nah, I don't go anywhere near that. It's the founding of Israel, if anyone's wondering. I don't go. I'm not a dispensationalist, so I just don't even think in those terms. So if an antichrist figure requires something like globalism, it won't necessarily be globalism. That's, I guess, what I'm saying. Kasha, what will happen with the mainstream media when Trump is elected? They'll become a rot to our entire country. What do you mean become? They're already there. They're going to have to find a way of adapting themselves to the new network society. There's just no way around it. And I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, they've got tons of cash. They're billion-dollar companies, billion with a B. But they're going to have to do so. I mean, when YouTube influencers with $100 webcams, Logitech webcams can legitimately fact check George Stephanopoulos, when they can legitimately fact check the legacy media as a whole, their rationale for existing has been radically challenged because historically speaking, they occupied a privileged position whereby they were unique mediators of what they claimed was accurate information. And they had a monopoly over information acquisition and dissemination. So they had unique access to information, and then they could uniquely disperse that information to the masses. And today, through the internet, you and I have every bit the same access to digital information, and we are able to disperse that access in ways that bypass the legacy media, comparable to how email and texting, direct messaging bypasses the post office. We still use it, but it has to situate itself, the post office, it has to situate itself in a new world where people just don't need to use it as much anymore. And I just think that's the legacy media. And we're already seeing it. We're already seeing CNN has its lowest viewership in 30 years. CNN had to sell off its iconic building, as I understand, downtown Atlanta, the CNN building, and move into smaller facilities. They just couldn't afford it anymore. We're seeing it across the board. New York Times, Washington Post has lost, what was it, 3 million readers, something like that, in the last 4 years. So it's just, I forget the actual stats, but they're all collapsing, and we're growing. We're all growing, particularly independent content creators. So now you get your daily diet of information from X, for example, or for Rumble, what have you, and then it gets interpreted and framed by content creators that have earned your trust. I don't have an ABC next to my name. I don't have CNN or Fox, right? That's the vetting for me. But someone like Rupert Murdoch had to vet me, right? So I gotta act within his biases. Just ask Tucker what happens when you go outside them. Instead, I have to earn your trust. We have to work extra hard at earning your trust, and that is why I think the age of the independent content creator is a very, very good one indeed. So I don't know what they're going to do. They're going to have to find a way of anchoring themselves. I mean, look at CNN. CNN I don't know what to make of CNN. Half the time, I mean, with Scott Jennings on there and so forth, half the time they're blowing my mind going, those are some great insights. You're actually holding those Democrats accountable there. Whoa, that was really good. That's something I might have heard on Joe Rogan over, so we'll have to see. We'll have to see how they adjust themselves. ROT Corp. I'm in the military from Georgia, not stationed in Georgia. Applied for absentee ballot online. It was not very user-friendly. That plus new Georgia voting laws. Democrat absentee request down. It concerns me to hear about George black vote down and white vote up. Could this be ammo for the Democrats? Could this be actual evidence of subtle or unintended voter suppression? Thoughts? No, I don't think so, ROT. That's a good question. I don't know how the Democrats are going to try to spin that one. I don't think so. No, I just think it's just a lack of enthusiasm on the one hand. Also, again, in 2020, everyone got a ballot. Pretty much everybody got a ballot. You didn't have to request one, as I understand it. So just the black vote was inordinately high in 2020. That gave a very a strong advantage to Democrats in Georgia. So no, I'm not seeing anything nefarious there. No, anybody can request a ballot. It's not a problem. You may have to go through a little bit more security loops, but again, that's all for the sake of protecting the vote. Rock Dog Dr. Steve, Trump is winning Arizona by 3+. Do you believe that means Kari Lake will win by at least 1 or 2? I think so, especially after the latest revelations of Diego and what a scumbag he is with his wife. Yeah, I have a feeling Kari's going to pull this out. I think in the end, we're all going to be like, whoa, she just came. Again, remember, Glenn Youngkin was losing this time. And it was right around this time he was starting to turn. So keep an eye over the next week. It was right around this time the polls really, he started to surge. And Terry McAuliffe just couldn't hold him off. And I'm hoping the same thing happens with Diego. Again, we generally don't vote split ticket. So if Trump is winning Arizona, it looks like he's going to win Arizona by a lot more than 3. At this rate, it looks like it's going to be a lot more than 3. I wouldn't be surprised if it was 4 or 5, maybe even 6. I don't know. That might be a little too much, but I mean, and keep in mind, if there's consistent winning if there's a paradigm shift here and there's consistent winning of 4, 5, 6 points to the Republican, it's not a swing state anymore. Just ask Florida. Just ask Iowa. Just ask Ohio. It's not a swing state anymore. Your swing state with those very small margins, very small single-digit margins, 1%, 2%, 3%, then it can go either way and so forth. So I have a hard time believing he's going to pull that off if that's what's happening in Arizona. But we'll see. See you in the next couple of weeks. Keep it in prayer. Ben Fork, there are Christians who study Hebrew roots of the faith. This is the Hebrew year 5785, the year of Hey. Let me see. Elef Bet Gimel Delet Hey. Hey vowels on Elef Bet Gimel Delet Hey. So Hey is 5, right? Yeah, there you go. Hey means grace, chesed. Yep. Through grace comes justice. Dr. Steve, do you believe justice for 2020 will come, especially for the January 6 detainees? I pray. Well, if Trump wins, yes, I do. I think there will be, again, even if it's not announced. So yes, I think J6 prisoners, we do have political prisoners. J6 prisoners will be freed. They'll be pardoned. And I do think what happened in 2020 will never happen again. Let's just say I think elections will be refined in such a way, legally and rightly, and in such a way so as to never allow that to happen again. Franz, Dr. Steve, you have no rival when it comes to analyzing polling data. Would you consider adding a polling service to your business model? Oh no, I borrow so much on with other people, but thank you, Franz. I appreciate that very much. I do dig polls. I geek out on it. I don't know if you saw my interview with Mark Mitchell yesterday. I think we're going to repost it as well. Again, we had it as part of a big live stream, and we'll post it on its own right from Rasmussen. So yeah, I just totally geek out on stuff like that. I love it. Jeff, Dr. Steve, do you think that the Democrats have played their Hegelian dialectic card? Ooh, nice, Jeff. For far too long, and that's why many voters in their parties are abandoning them. You'd have to explain to me what you made your thesis antithesis kind of thing. Are you talking about maybe resentment politics? Or so you'd have to explain to me more. You're obviously thinking at a really cool level. I'd love to engage with it more, Jeff. But if you're talking about resentment politics, if you're talking about Hegel's emphasis on synthesizing a thesis and antithesis, and keeping the two sides apart, and thereby deflecting resentment away from themselves and putting it on someone there. Yeah, no, I think so. In the end, if you live by resentment, you're going to die by resentment. If you live by division, you're going to die by division. And again, that's what we're seeing in the Democratic Party. Pro-Palestinian progressives on the one hand, pro-Israeli liberals on the other. Kamala may lose Michigan because Muslim voters have decided to vote against her and vote for Trump in retribution for that administration's support of Israel. So we'll see. We'll see how it plays itself out. Keith, I'm worried about the New York rally. Are they going to triple Trump's protection? Yeah, New York looks like the best opportunity for something bad to happen. Maybe, yeah, but it's going to be indoors. It's harder to do indoors because it's harder to be outside the security zone. Even, well, that creep was able to get inside. But no, of course, keep him in prayer. I hope, absolutely. I hope. And, he's been behind bulletproof glass. He is loaded. He does have a bulletproof vest. But again, yeah, that's why they're going for the head. But anyway, I wouldn't worry. God's taking care of them. That's for sure. And that's it, gang. All right, guys, I love you. I'll keep you abreast of anything new that happens over the weekend. If not, until then, stay in prayer, stay in loving your family and all that's true, good, and beautiful. And I will see you on Monday. God bless.